Welcome, everyone. We're going to be taking a look at some fascinating excerpts from a book on Zen Buddhism, particularly focusing on the practice of Zazen
Mm-hmm.
and how it can help us understand this concept of self a little bit better.
It really is a practice that can be so beneficial in helping us understand both ourselves and the world around us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things I really appreciated about this book was how it used these really relatable stories
Right.
to try to illustrate some of these concepts that can feel a little bit complex or abstract sometimes.
Hmm.
And one that really stuck with me was the story of this American businessman
Oh, yes.
who had achieved success in every outward measure you can think of, right?
Yeah.
He had the successful career, he was financially abundant, he had the family, the house, all of it. But he still felt this deep sense of emptiness.
Yeah.
And I think it just, it made me reflect on how often we can fall into that trap of searching for fulfillment in these external things.
I
And then,
know.
we get there and it's like, huh.
It's so common, I think. The book kind of suggests that this feeling of emptiness that we can experience sometimes might come from looking for validation and worth from outside ourselves. So, maybe achievements, possessions, other people's opinions.
Right approval.
Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
like you said, it's a trap because those things can change. They're not stable.
Yeah, it's like building a house on sand.
Exactly. And there's a couple of quotes from ancient Buddhist texts that the book highlights that I think speak to this. One says, "To depend on others is to be unstable." And another, "The foundation of the self is only the self."
That's powerful. It's like it's suggesting that real stability can only come from within,
Right.
from connecting with that inner foundation of our own being.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right. It's about recognizing that, lasting fulfillment, it comes from understanding and nurturing our authentic selves. It's not about chasing external things or other people's approval.
Right. And so it begs the question then, okay, how do we even define this self that we're supposed to be connecting with? And the book points out something that I think we all do. We often define ourselves in relation to others.
Oh, yeah.
So, parent, child, employee, boss, even just comparing ourselves to others,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of success or wealth.
I think that's so ingrained in us to define ourselves by these roles and by these comparisons that we make. But the book suggests that this can actually trap us in this cycle of
Yeah.
feeling superior or inferior and ultimately keeps us from discovering who we are at our core.
It's almost like we're looking in a mirror, but only seeing reflections of other people, not our true selves.
Exactly. And the book uses this really powerful analogy to try to explain this. It talks about the clothes we wear in life.
Oh, this is where it gets good. I'm curious to hear more about this.
So it's not talking about literal clothes, but about all the roles we play, the labels that we kind of, adopt, the identities we hold on to. It's like all these external things that we use to define ourselves.
Yeah.
Think about the clothes you wear at work. You're maybe the responsible one or the go-getter, the team player.
It makes you really reflect on how much energy we actually put into maintaining those images.
Yeah.
And how much those images might not actually be who we are underneath.
And that's exactly the question that the book is prompting us to ask.
Hmm.
Because it reminds us that, at the end of our lives, all of those clothes are stripped away. Death reveals our naked selves, the
Wow.
essence of who we are beyond those external trappings.
So the real question then becomes, what is that naked self?
Right.
What is that core being underneath all of those layers?
And are we living in alignment with it?
That's a really profound thought.
Yeah.
It really encourages us to look beyond the surface
Right.
and connect with that deeper part of ourselves.
And to help us understand this a little bit better, the book introduces this Buddhist term for this deeper self, which is Jiko, which translates to universal self.
Okay, Jiko, universal self. Tell me more.
So this is a concept that can feel a little bit unfamiliar to us, particularly in kind of Western thought. But Jiko, it goes beyond our typical understanding of ego or the conscious self. It encompasses this entire life force that flows through us.
Okay.
So it includes our subconscious mind, our intuition, the essence of our being.
So not just our thoughts and feelings, but something much bigger.
Much more expansive, exactly. The book uses this image of opening the hand of thought to describe this. Think about when you're sleeping.
Well,
Your thoughts quiet down, but life continues. Your body is breathing. Your heart is beating all without any conscious effort on your part.
so Jiko is that. It's all of it. It's the conscious and the unconscious, the thinking and the being.
Exactly. It's the wholeness of our being
Mm.
and the source from which our thoughts and actions all arise. And it's something that we all share.
Right.
It connects us to each other and to the universe as a whole.
This reminds me of that story in the book about the artist who was really struggling to find success, and she was blaming everything outside of herself for her struggles.
Ah, yes. That story, I think, really highlights how easy it is for us to get caught up in those stories we tell ourselves. In this case, she was fixated on this past version of herself,
Right.
a time when she had achieved recognition, and she was resentful that her present reality didn't match up to those expectations.
It was like she was clinging to that identity of the successful artist
Exactly.
and unable to see her present reality clearly.
And this goes back to this idea of Jiko, of living out the reality of life, being present in this moment, accepting things as they are without getting lost in thoughts and fantasies.
So for the artist in this case, it's not about chasing the fame or recognition.
Right.
It's about the pure joy of creating.
Exactly. Regardless of the outcome.
Right.
It's about finding that inner satisfaction in the doing, whether it's a hobby, a relationship, and even just the act of living.
And that takes letting go of attachments
Yes.
to the past and the future, to those fantasies and expectations that keep us from really being present.
And the book even goes on to talk about how clinging to memories, myths, dogmas can prevent us from seeing the world with fresh eyes.
This reminds me of the story about the villager who was just constantly lamenting the loss of the old temple that had burned down hundreds of years ago. Even though the new temple was beautiful and, much grander,
Right.
he was still fixated on this thing that no longer existed.
It's such a good example of how we can get trapped by the past.
Yes.
Blinded by attachments to stories and beliefs that no longer serve us.
And I think this isn't just a personal issue either.
No.
The book mentions how this kind of fanaticism, this clinging to ideologies and dogmas, can also happen on a societal level.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good reminder to be aware of that, to not get so lost in these rigid beliefs that we lose sight of the present moment, both as individuals and as a collective.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
It is. I think a lot of this just comes down to awareness. Recognizing the thoughts and patterns that prevent us from connecting with our true selves and experiencing life to the fullest.
It really does.
Yeah.
The book describes this practice of Zazen as a way to kind of cultivate that awareness,
Right.
Connecting with our true selves
Yeah.
and living out the reality of life.
Exactly. Zazen is all about being present, letting go of all the distractions and the mental chatter, just allowing yourself to experience the world as it is, without all the filters and judgments.
But it sounds really challenging to just shut off your mind like that.
Well, it does take practice. And the book emphasizes that it's not really about emptying your mind completely,
Okay.
but more about creating space for something deeper to emerge.
So it's not about suppressing thoughts. It's more about observing them without getting carried away.
Exactly. Cultivating a sense of detachment from your thoughts, recognizing that they're not the totality of who you are.
And through this practice, the book suggests that we can start to live more authentically, more in alignment with our true selves.
Right. It's about shifting from a life of just reaction to a life of response.
But
But when we're not so caught up in our thoughts and emotions, we can respond to situations with more clarity and wisdom.
rather than just reacting based on our habitual patterns.
It's exactly.
It sounds like it takes a lot of courage to let go of those familiar patterns.
It does. But the rewards can be incredible.
Yeah.
The book suggests that by connecting with our true selves, we can experience a deep sense of peace and fulfillment that doesn't depend on anything outside of ourselves.
It's like we're tapping into this inner source of strength and wisdom that's always been there,
Yes.
but that we so often overlook.
Exactly. And that inner strength can really help us navigate the challenges of life with more grace and resilience.
So it sounds like Zazen is not just a meditation practice, but a way of life, a way of being in the world.
It is. It's about bringing that mindful awareness to every aspect of our lives,
Right.
from our relationships to our work to even just our everyday interactions.
And the book makes it clear that this is not about becoming some detached, emotionless being.
No, not at all. It's about embracing the full range of human emotions,
Okay.
but not letting them control us. It's about finding that balance between feeling and thinking, between being and doing.
Embracing the wholeness of the human experience.
Exactly. The light and shadow, the joy and sorrow.
All a part of the journey.
Right. All part of what makes us human.
It's a beautiful and inspiring vision. And I'm sensing this real sense of hope in this message. This belief that we can find true peace and fulfillment by connecting with our true selves.
Absolutely. There is. And it's a hope that's grounded in our own experience. We all have the capacity to tap into that inner wisdom, that universal self that connects us to something greater than ourselves.
And the book goes on to give some practical guidance on how to cultivate this connection
It does.
through the practice of Zazen.
Exactly. And it encourages us to approach this practice with curiosity and openness, to see it as a journey of self-discovery rather than a destination.
So it's not about striving for some perfect state of enlightenment.
Right.
It's just about being present with ourselves, with our breath, with the world around us.
Yes, embracing the simplicity of just being moment by moment.
And this reminds me of that passage from the book about how everything is just as it is.
Such a powerful reminder to let go of our need to control, to just accept things as they are. And in that acceptance, we find peace and freedom.
But doesn't that contradict the idea of personal growth? Striving to become better versions of ourselves?
Not necessarily. The book suggests that true growth comes from a place of self-acceptance, not from a place of self-judgment. So when we can accept ourselves as we are flaws and all, we actually create space for transformation to happen organically.
So not about denying our imperfections, but about recognizing them as part of our wholeness.
Exactly. And when we embrace our wholeness, we can tap into that deeper source of wisdom and strength that can really guide us on our journey.
It feels like such a shift from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance.
Beautiful way to put it.
From a sense of lack to a sense of fullness.
And that fullness is available to all of us, regardless of our circumstances.
So what are some practical steps we can take to cultivate that sense of fullness in our own lives?
The book talks a lot about regular practice, setting aside time each day to connect with ourselves through Zazen.
It doesn't have to be hours of meditation, though, right?
Not at all.
No.
Even just a few minutes of mindful breathing can make a difference.
Okay.
The key is to find a rhythm that works for you and to stick with it.
And for those of us who are totally new to meditation, any tips for getting started?
The book suggests starting with guided meditations, which can provide some structure. There are lots of resources online and through apps.
Right.
And be patient with yourself.
Right.
Meditation is a practice. And like any practice, it takes time and effort to develop. Don't get discouraged if your mind wanders. Just gently guide it back to the present moment.
What about when we're not meditating?
Yeah.
How can we bring this awareness into our everyday lives?
Well, the book talks about paying attention to our senses.
Okay.
To really notice the sights and sounds, the smells and textures of our surroundings. It's about savoring each moment, noticing the beauty and the wonder that we often miss.
Cultivating an appreciation for the simple things.
Exactly, for the gift of life itself.
And that can be a source of deep joy and gratitude.
Absolutely.
It sounds like we've been given a powerful set of tools here to live a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
I think so. And the beauty is that these tools are always available to us. Right here, right now.
So it's not about seeking something outside of ourselves, but about uncovering what's already within.
Exactly. And that is our true self, our universal self, the source of our wisdom, our strength, our connection to all things.
It's a really beautiful message, and I feel a sense of hope and possibility after exploring these ideas with you today.
Me too. And I'm curious to hear what resonates most with you, listener. What aspects of your life are calling for more attention and presence? Where might you be holding on to thoughts or beliefs that are keeping you from experiencing the fullness of this moment?
Yeah, it really is a lot to reflect on. And it's amazing how easy it is to get caught up in all of that, right? Those external definitions, the stories we tell ourselves, the roles we play, the expectations we carry, and then lose sight of that inner essence, that universal self that connects us all.
It's a lifelong practice, this journey of self-discovery. But I think the more we cultivate that awareness, the more we can live from a place of authenticity and wholeness.
And the more compassionate we become towards others, too, right?
Yeah.
Because as we connect with our own true selves, it naturally kind of radiates outward.
Absolutely. It's like a ripple effect, you know, as we find peace within ourselves, we radiate that peace out into the world.
We've covered so much ground today. It's been so insightful. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our listener with as we wrap up this deep dive?
Just this. Remember, you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your circumstances. You are something much greater, more expansive than any of those things. And that expansive self is always there waiting to be discovered.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights with us today. This has been a really enriching conversation.
It's been a pleasure. And to our listener, I encourage you to keep exploring these ideas. See what resonates with you, and see how you can bring more presence and awareness into your own life.
Until next time, may you find peace and fulfillment on your journey.